I think partly because it gives me the opportunity to explore the psychology, a different psychology from the lone serial killer. That takes you down a certain path, and you're dealing with a kind of somebody in isolation in the narrative, and that's fine. But I wanted for there to be a human dimension to the killer's life, however warped and twisted it might be. And the way that suggested itself to me was for him to have less an accomplice than a sidekick. I mean, one of the killers is considerably more competent than the other, and a much stronger personality. But it was a way of exploring the psychology of murder without necessarily treating the murderer in psychotic isolation. I think you can't write a novel which deals with that kind of criminal activity without being very clear about the reality of what's happening to women every day in the world. One of the things that I tried to make an effort to do was for characters who are actually in jeopardy, to make the victims very significant characters in their own right, so that you have a sense that it's actually somebody's life. It's not just a random statistic. Although when the story starts, most of the victims have already piled up, so we don't get to meet those characters. But for the characters who are in immediate jeopardy in the novel, it was very important that they were real three-dimensional people, whether they're male or female, but obviously in this case they are female. Well, you know, I grew up Roman Catholic, so you know, whatever one ostensibly decides to write about, what one is deeply interested in creeps in to the narrative, whatever it is, whether you're writing about the devil or werewolves or an ordinary family living in Manchester. Your abiding thematic concerns will find a way in, and this book is no exception. The questions of, you know, is life meaningful? Is there a cosmic moral order? Do the guilty get punished? Do the virtuous get rewarded? I mean, those are all very old, basic moral questions, but they're questions that still fascinate me. So I think pretty much whatever I write, thematically that stuff is going to find its way in. That was not a terribly calculated decision. It's just that when I came up with the opening scene for the novel and was thinking about a landscape which was quite bleak, you know, a very small community, but in a big space. America is a much bigger canvas in terms of landscape. But also I think there is something peculiar about the vastness and the emptiness of parts of the US, which is that it creates a kind of moral, freedom is not the right word, but if you commit a murder in the Netherlands or you commit a murder in the United Kingdom, sooner or later some jogger or dog walker is going to trip over the body and find it. You know, there is a sense that the moral world is always at your shoulder. It's very close because it's a small country. I've spent, you know, time driving around the United States, you know, through some of the southern states, big desert spaces. And after a few days I started to experience this strange kind of existential liberty. You know, the landscape there seems to say to you, if you kill somebody here and you bury them in a place that's remote enough, well, you know, the chances are you're going to get away with it. So there was that. But also it's because I grew up watching, you know, some of those great cop shows made in America in the 1970s. I watched, you know, The Streets of San Francisco. So I think the grammar of my kind of police investigative imagination was formed by watching those American shows, and it just seemed a very natural environment to you know, plus I've lived in the States too, so it wasn't a completely alien